Good evening, everyone, and welcome to After the Roll, Legend of Vox Machina, Season 2, Episode 5, Pass Through Fire. My name is Travis Crokin, the Calm Scribe, and I'm being joined by my co-host, Sporkle McSpork, Billy McPherson. How are you tonight, Billy?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for the kind intro. It's great to be here. I can't believe that it's been as long as it has.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's actually really hard not being here doing this.
Yeah.
These 2 weeks really kind of just tucked by for me very slowly, which was problematic, but not much you can do with that when it happens. So welcome back. Nice to see you again. Looking fantastic as always.
Thank you.
So let's start things off. So as we know, we designed a special cocktail for each episode of Vox Machina, and this cocktail that we designed is called Trial by Fire. It is designed to be a trial. It is hot. It is spicy. This is the cocktail that we're talking about here. It has a habanero and mango pierced on that skull stick there. And so I'm going to knock my garnish into the drink now that we've seen what it looks like. And let's take a look at how we can make this cocktail yourself by taking a look at the TikTok video that I did for it. Let's take a look.
Oh, I'm excited.
Oh, so this one, I'm so excited for this one. It is fantastic. Let's take a look. We are back with another Legend of Vox Machina inspired literary cocktail, this time for Season 2, Episode 5, Through the Fire, and this cocktail is called Trial by Fire. So let's get started on this one. There's a lot to it. First, we're going to need 1.5 ounces of mezcal. This adds a very nice smoky flavor to the drink. But of course, the cocktail is called Trial by Fire, so we are going to use half of a habanero. Muddle the habanero into the bottom of the glass, in with the mezcal in the bottom of your shaker. Get that heat nice and incorporated. Then we're going to add 1/2 ounce of lime juice, fresh squeezed, 3 ounces of mango nectar, not mango juice, make sure it's mango nectar. You need the extra thickness to it. Then we're going to have 1/2 ounce of Cointreau tossed in here as well. And there we are, set that off to the side, and 1/2 ounce of Campari. Campari adds a bit of bitterness to it and nicely changes the flavor, takes away some of the sweetness from the mango juice. We have that, then we have 2 dashes of Sweet Reaper bitters, and then we're going to add in our ice as well. Whoops. And then we're going to give that a quick shake. There we are. Now this cocktail, because we are using habanero, it does have seeds in it, so you need to do a double strain. Into a rocks glass. There we go. Set that off to the side, and then we're going to garnish with some mango and a piece of habanero on top. And there we have Trial by Fire just dropped inside. Let's take a sip of this. Oh, that's not a cocktail for the faint of heart. It's very spicy. If you're not used to habanero or high heat, use a different pepper for it. But this is Trial by Fire for Episode 5 of Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. Absolutely fantastic. Very smoky, multi-layered, hot drink. Give it a shot and let me know your thoughts of it. Have a fantastic day and enjoy Episode 5 of Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. Take care. And there we are with how we make the cocktail.
I gotta say, I'm a big fan of your cocktails, Travis. It's a lot of fun to watch, and they're very creative.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. I enjoy making these cocktails. So as I was saying, for those of you that were here earlier, this cocktail, the inspiration that came behind this one is in Trial by Fire is inspired by Pyra, home to the Fire Ashari people. Trial by Fire is a cocktail not for the faint of heart. Designed with fire in mind, the spicy cocktail is multifaceted and can have a level of heat that is altered by changing the pepper used or how much of the pepper is used. The mezcal gives a nice smokiness to the drink, with the Cointreau and the lime juice adding a citrus twist to accent the combination of flavors. Campari adds a touch of bitterness to tame the sweetness of the mango juice, while the scorpion bitters and habanero add a fiery kick. Connect to your inner Keyleth, draw upon your courage, and see if you can pass your own trial by fire. Push through the heat and enjoy a smoky adventure. And there we have, my friends, our trial by fire. Cheers.
Cheers.
Very spicy, very nice. I gotta say, that's probably one of my favorite cocktails I've designed so far for this. It's just such a complex and unique cocktail, having the habanero pepper infused mezcal in this.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that I would have expected to even hear of. I've never really thought about spicy cocktails as being an option, but it sounds cool. I love spice, so definitely one that I'll have to try out. Now, I don't understand where you're getting all this trial by fire from, because there's no fire whatsoever in this episode.
I don't know. I mean, as soon as I saw this episode drop like weeks ago, something told me I should use a bit of spice in the cocktail that I wanted to design for it. So this one I've had cooking for, like I said, I've been excited for this one. It's been cooking for a while. And yeah, there's a little bit of heat. And that's the thing. The cocktail, much like the episode, is full of a lot of heat, a lot of, kind of a challenge. But if you can push through it, there's some beautiful stuff on the other side. And you're absolutely right, Prefect. Going to another time dimension helps with shaking the tumbler.
Absolutely. One of my favorite parts.
There we go. That's actually one of the reasons why I keep it included now. Because it shortens the video, and it actually does kind of add a bit of flair to what we're doing. So the pass through fire, this episode, which I did misname when I made the video for TikTok. I called it Through the Fire, but we'll let that slide. We start off with a cold open, which is very different from the cold opens that we've had recently. And it's actually a very fascinating cold open. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, two thoughts on this one. First of all, and this is stupid. This is so dumb, but I will tell you, I love it when things in an episode, when they say the name of the episode. In movies, I like it when they say the name of the movie. I just find it so amusing when you find that moment where you're like, it's called Pass Through Fire, and they just said Pass Through Fire. They said it in the cold open within like 2 minutes, and I nearly lost my shit. I was so excited. Yeah, it was like cute. It was very heartwarming and a teaching moment, and something that's not what we usually see in the cold opens. Usually the cold opens are pretty stark and bad situations.
Generally speaking. I have to say, I agree with you on the title being used. That actually is, when you're in publishing and writing in the literary world, that is a metric that you go through when you're promoting your book and selling your book. There are actually almost all of the metrics that are keeping track of everything do actually keep track of whether or not the title is mentioned inside the book.
Really?
Yeah, or inside the search term that you're going through. There's a metric for that.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't think so. I think it's just something that kind of, I don't know of any known reason for it, but that's something that is there when I do my research and things and stuff like that. It's like, is the title in the search term that was used, and is the title of the book featured somewhere within the book as well? So
I love it.
A lot of people love it. It is a big thing, but that is so with this cold open, we do get to see Keyleth's mother and Keyleth, and I found that this cold open was a little bit calmer than we than we've expected. But I also found it to be a little bit kind of delayed. So for anyone who's not familiar with the world of Dungeons and Dragons, anyone who's not familiar with all of this stuff that's happening and with the Ashari people and Aramentes and things like that, this episode I found to be fantastic in that it actually kind of gives you an idea of what an Aramente is. We get to see Keyleth as she's very young, and her mother is going off for a trial. And she's going to the Ashari. Oh, she is Ashari. She's going to the Pyra people to go through a trial, and there's this really beautiful moment. I actually love the fact that she calls her Little Flower.
Yeah.
I've got all these nicknames that I use for my daughter as well, and so they're having this emotional moment where she doesn't want her mother to leave. Her father comes out, and her mother shows her tells her to stop and listen to the wind, and then actually says that, you're listening to your powers, and shows her the fire and teaches her how not to get burned by the fire. That was such a really cool moment. What was your thought of how that factored in?
I thought it was very interesting, and I think it's great that they had this in the cold open, in this, first couple minutes of the show, where they kind of show the Ashari's control over the power. They're showing how someone has an affinity to air can actually control fire, and how they can control water and earth and all this stuff. It was very cool to see, and I felt like it gave a lot more substance to who Keyleth is as a character, because for the past season and 4 episodes now, you're just like, oh, she's the druid.
Yeah.
That's it. They control, weather and stuff, animals, whatever.
Yeah. You keep hearing something about an Aramante that,
yeah,
whatever that is, as you go along, if you're not familiar with it, then there's a lot that ties into it. But that was the thing. They actually say, the fire cannot exist without wind. Never pull back. We're made to pass. We are the Wind Ashari. We're made to pass through fire. And it only hurts you if you let it. And that's the same thing for this cocktail. Push through the pain. Allow yourself to enjoy it and get to the beautiful, deeper inner beauty of this cocktail. It'll only hurt you if you let it. But it actually is a mind over matter kind of thing. So this cocktail really does tie into this episode.
Yep.
But then her mother says, I'm always with you. One day you'll be ready for your own journey. And then she turns and she walks away. And there's just this beautiful, beautiful moment that really allows you to kind of see the beginning of Keyleth's journey, and kind of also a little bit of where her anxiety is coming from.
Right.
Being separated from your parent and that kind of thing. The cocktail choice for tonight is cran grape juice and vodka. Fantastic. That is
like a fancy Cape Cod where I come from.
Yeah, it matches the purple of Scanlan. There we go. But then we jump in, and this beginning of this episode is a little bit different from other episodes. It's very it's positioning, I found. The cold open was a very positioning cold open. It was giving us some so for those of you that don't know, I am getting over COVID, so I am a bit brain foggy tonight, so I might be a little bit more scattered than usual, which says something.
That's okay.
But there's a lot of like the cold open is exposition, giving you a bit of background of Keyleth, a bit of a flashback. And then we jump into this, and it's a little bit more of an exposition and just a positioning of characters and reminding us of who everybody is and what they're doing at all times, or at this one time. So I start off with Keyleth gathering the wood, and then we see the moment where she pauses and listens to the wind. And it's a nice tie-in that they do this immediately, because it ties back into the story structure of what we just saw with the cold open of listen to the wind, connect to your powers.
Yeah, and I think it was very interesting too. You get the moment where, she's walking with the sticks and she stops and pauses, but they don't hit on it and stay on that moment. They let it breathe by going and checking in with the other characters and then swinging back to her to show you that during this whole scene, she's still there listening to the wind.
Exactly. She's paused and she's kind of in this moment of reflection and gazing off into the distance. And then we have this beautiful thing. I was just giggling to myself with Vex going on this whole thing about how dying and coming back to life changes you and makes you much more mature and changes your perspective in life.
Yeah, and Pike tells her, yeah, you definitely look more mature. And she says, I'm going to take that as a compliment because of how mature I am. I loved that. And I wrote it down because I need to use that line.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's just a great connection thing. Again, of just a great way of showing the connection between Pike and Vex, and showing us how Vex, they actually, it's not very long, but they gave us a beat where we get to see how Vex is reacting to having died and come back to life. And that's what she does, this whole thing of and whoosh, I was back to life, and it's amazing, and it really changed your perspective. And it was just really cool to have that kind of beat with her for that. But then we go back to Keyleth, and she says that they're close to Pyra and the home of the Fire Ashari, and it was the last place that her mother was seen alive. So again, we have this immediate tie back, an immediate reminder of, hey, that cold open you saw, pay attention. It is important.
Yep. And so I took away two things from this. First of all, Pyra sounds really cool. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to see these fire Ashari because they're going to be so cool looking. I bet they're going to have like flaming heads or something. That aside, the fact that we hear that Keyleth's mom is missing, we know that Keyleth has anxiety, that she's really worried about failing, that she hasn't seen her parents in X amount of time, but I believe this is the first time we hear that her mom is straight up gone.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing, and that kind of ties that moment back of the cold open so much stronger and poignant of like that. Wow, like that's, they don't come out and say it, but you're kind of given the impression of like, wow, that was, I think we just saw the last time that she saw her mother.
Right.
And she's gone now. Well, then, so that's when Pike says, then you know what, we should go then. That's awesome. We're so close to Pyra. That's like, why don't we go check it out? And that's where Vax comes in and says, no, like everyone in Tal'Dorei is depending on us. We can't just go and like, dude, we have to focus and we have to go do what we're supposed to be doing. And then that's where Pike pipes up again and says, kind of notices that, you know, Grog's been gone for a while. How long does it take to cop a squat, as she says?
Pop a squat, because, you know, we go to the bathroom in Vox Machina. That's just one of the things that we've noticed is that they have to poop sometimes. One of the things that stuck out to me in this scene was Vax's reaction to this, saying that people are counting on him. To me, it felt like this was very out of character for Vax. He's not usually the one that pipes up and says, we need to do things because everyone's depending on us. Sometimes he brings up a certain person, but generally speaking, he's not usually the one ringleading the charge to do something for the greater good.
Yeah.
If it was Percy saying it, I might have believed it more. Even if it was Grog or Scanlan saying it, maybe. But Vax felt out of character, or he's just a tremendous dick now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can take a look at that and wonder if it's because of the trauma they just went through. He just lost his sister. She came back, and now he's, you know, there's just a lot that he went through, but there's a lot that he went through. There's a lot that's tied into everything, and he definitely is a different character right now. And that's, I think, a nice juxtaposition with Vex in that Vex is still Vex, and that was depicted the way that she was talking about being more mature and different outlook on life and stuff like that. It was still very much Vex in character for Vex for that. Vax definitely was different from the way he's been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, Grog's pooping.
Yeah, Grog's pooping, and Scanlan goes to check on him because he's very brave, and tosses the broom to Vex and says, here, toss this in the fire, and walks away. And that's when I actually noticed this. So I watched this episode a few times, and this is the first time that I actually noticed that Grog actually is pooping through this scene. Like, we hear passing gas and stuff like that, but you actually see his pants pulled down around his his ankles.
Yep.
And that was the first time I actually noticed his pants, that his pants were down in this.
Yeah.
So he actually is pooping this.
I watched this a few times as well, and it wasn't until my last watch that I realized the same thing and was like, oh, yeah, he's actually pooping.
Yeah, he's actually got something going on there. And then we actually see him talking, and I think this is the first time we actually learn the name of his blade being Craven Edge.
Yep.
And he's talking to him and says, hey, you know, like you know, how you doing? And he's like, I hunger. And he's like, yeah, do you ever not hunger? Can you never be full by any chance?
It's an interesting conversation, especially when you think about, you know, this big giant guy taking a poop, talking to his sword while he's on the can. It's just, it's such a weird scene.
It is. This whole episode was just like, there's just so much to unpack in this whole episode. But yeah, he's having this conversation. The Scanlan comes in. He's like, hey, you talking to your dookie there? Like, what's going on?
Yep.
Yep, just asserting my dominance. And then he asks him to play a tune, and Scanlan, being a Scanlan, is like, yeah, okay, whatever. Sure, I'll play you a song about pooping while you poop.
He wasn't thrilled about it.
No, but he was a good character about it. Like, he did it. and he jumped in for it. And
Did you
then
hear this? Did you listen to the song?
I did, and it was freaking amazing. All of the songs in this episode were so good. I can't wait. I really hope they do a Vox Machina soundtrack.
I hope so too.
That's like includes all the little bardic songs and everything going through and everything. Like it would be absolutely fantastic. But then so we actually learned more about Grog and Craven Edge, where it's like, you know, what is this? What's going on? What relationship do we have going on here? And Craven Edge basically says, you slaughter your enemies and they make you stronger, and I drink their blood and I always need more, basically.
Yeah. Basically, and then Grog admits that, yeah, it feels good when that happens and I get stronger.
Yeah.
I feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there was a moment in this scene that really stuck out to me, and it was interesting because you think of a enchanted sword, something, whatever you're using, and have it be imbued with intelligence is odd. To actually be able to communicate back and be like, hey, I've got a name, this is what's up, this is what, like, and explain the situation of how things are actually happening to what's going on in the situation. But it actually has a personality. It's not just this dumb thing that's constantly hungering and looking for food and trying to go forward. Because as he's talking, explaining what's happening, Grog farts.
Mm-hmm.
And Craven Edge actually, like...
sighs. Yep.
And then continues talking. And it's like, so he's irritated that he's been interrupted. Like, there actually is a personality to the sword as well, not just a level of sentience to it.
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up as well, because I think it's really important to recognize that it's not just, you know, I'm hungry. That's not what it's saying all the time. It has some kind of insides to it that makes it conscious, not just talkative.
Exactly. And there's depth to it. There's depth to the character. So we suddenly have a new character that's tossed in. And then we jump back to being by the fire, and everyone's sleeping. And Vax has this rather horrifying vision that pops up in front of him.
Yeah, so Vax is still having weird, like, awake, asleep, fever dreams about the red place and the skeletons and spooks jumping out. And I will throw this out here. I have been rewatching season 1. And the spooks and skeletons that are popping out in this fever dream look an awful lot like what Delilah summoned.
Really?
Not apples to apples, but really close.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that again. That would make sense. And that would not surprise me at all. The way they write this, the way they tie things in, that would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. But they have that tied in there. But yeah, so then he sees the doors are just gorgeous. These 2 black doors that are enrobed in vines and everything else, and they open up, and then all the stuff comes running out. And that's when he screams, "No, leave me," and wakes everybody else up and just kind of says, I think it was just a bad dream. There's a lot of just like face value stuff in this episode where people are like, oh okay.
Side eye.
Never happened before. But,
all right.
But then he goes outside to get some air, and we see that he's actually trying to take the vestige off, and he can't. He can't even get his fingers under the collar. It's like it's tight, it's there. And as he's kind of silently struggling to get this vestige off, Keyleth is watching from the cave.
Yeah, and she looks really concerned. Like, she's obviously been pretty concerned about Vax since the temple, when his whole experience happened. But this is a definite, like, you can see her, you can see the concern in her eyes, and you can see Vax's struggle. Like, why can't I get out of this? Why am I having these dreams? What are you doing to me?
Yeah, so she's picking up that there's something more than that wasn't just a bad dream. There's more happening here. And it shows that, again, that they've still, whether or not it's the right time, whether or not they want to admit it, whether or not they've got their own jealousies, there's still this connection between the two of them. There's a tie-in that is happening between the two of them. But then we go back into, and that was another thing that I found interesting about this episode, is that they did a lot of individual story or individual character development. while they're in a group as a whole. So we had that kind of by the fire with Grog pooping into those conversations that were happening. And now again we see they're on the mountain, they're going up through the mountain, and Keyleth is again stopping and listening to the wind that's blowing through.
That is true. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then we have Grog and Pike doing their thing, and that is the best song I think of this episode.
It's so good. I wrote down all the lyrics.
Did you?
I was so excited. Yes, I did.
Do you care to recite the lyrics for everybody?
Road, we're on the road. Road, we're on the road. Good thing you and I aren't chodes. Yeah, here we are on the road.
And then Grog flips her into the snowbank. Off his shoulders. That is freaking awesome. And then again we have these asides. So it's kind of like character development that is just done in asides as we go along. So we have Vex and Vax talking, and basically Vex is saying, like, Vax, you're feeling better, like, I guess from the dream, from the whatever. It's like, you're feeling better, and his again kind of dickish response is, I'll feel better when we're there. And whatever it is, he's just laser focused on going to where they're going and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. And this was another example where I was just like, I get him being a dick because he, had this experience, but his focus just seems so weird to me. If he was just focusing on something, yeah, I get it. But like his focus to like complete this task, I don't understand.
So that's the thing. It's not a focus. It's a fixation.
Yeah, fixation.
I think that's the thing, is that it is like he's hyper focused on, but it's like it's a fixation. He's got two trains of thought right now. What is this thing on me? And we have to do what we need to do. And probably a third one of what the hell is this crap that keeps haunting me? But
right.
He is really just kind of fixated on what he's supposed to be doing here with this. But then, so Vex kind of gives up and turns to Scanlan, and she's like, hey, that broom, how'd you get it to fly? Can you tell me? And he says, yeah, for a price. Like, you have to owe me a favor at some point somewhere down the road.
Right.
You're not going to know about, and I'll tell you how to use this.
So knowing how the creators and writers of this work, you have to imagine that Scanlan wants this for some reason that's going to come up.
Yeah. Because
there's no way that he goes into this bargaining and says, oh yeah, I want a favor that won't be named now. There's no way this character does that without something being planned in the future. Yeah. Absolutely no way. He would have asked for a kiss.
So that's the thing. He really reminds me of Rocket the Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy in this, where there's like, there's always a massive hook in whatever you're asking. Like, that's exactly like you said. Like, he has wheels turning in his head and machinations that you don't know about, and there's something that, like, he's been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, exactly. But that leads to one of the best quotes from Vex that I think I've heard. If you don't come down, I will restring your loot with your own pubic hair.
Yes. Because he flies off, and then Vax is like, we don't have time for this. Again, not like humor or anything like that, just very, don't have time. What are you guys doing screwing around? Let's go on.
Right.
But it was a beautiful, beautiful opening to the next scene. Because again, for pacing that they do, they've got the fast and the slow, and they're going through, and there's not been a lot of fast-paced action. There's been a tension raised with Grog and the Craven Edge. But then there's been no real tension or action in this point. And then Scanlan sees the volcano being erupting and kind of going chaotic and going crazy. And he comes back and says, this volcano's doing something it shouldn't be doing. And that's where Keyleth pipes up and says, that's Pyra. If that's erupting, that's bad because that's a rift to the fire plane. And if the volcano's erupting, it should be dormant, then that means the Ashari are in trouble and we need to get to them.
Right. And for the most part, the party seems to be in agreement, except for Vax and Percy.
Yeah, I didn't remember what Percy says in this, but
Percy just agrees and says, "Yeah, if we stop and help every single person on the way,
oh, that's right. Yeah, that was Percy.
we're never gonna get there."
Yeah, because Vax is like, no, we can't go, and Percy, says we can't stop and help everyone, and that's when Keyleth gets really pissed off, and again we see her power. She just flips into a hawk and flies off.
Yeah,
and then we have,
yes.
Then we have Vex and Pike being like, you know what, Pike's like, we're not just stopping everywhere because we're seeing puppies. Like, this is her people. They need help, and that's where Vex kind of steps in and says, if it was us, especially for you, that she would be stopping and dropping everything to come help you. What the hell, man?
And so we lay it on thick on Vax in this, but I am so surprised that no one points out that they literally dropped everything to help Percy and his family, just like weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking about that, but that was. Would you say that the stakes are different now, though? They've got a mission from the Sphinx, and they're no longer there's a ragtag bunch of misfits getting together. Now they're Vox Machina. Now they've got a mission. They're the keepers of the realm.
So I agree, but I think the key part of that was none of them owed Percy anything, and they all went with him and said, we'll fight with you. We'll watch your back. We're in this together. So when it comes down to someone else in the party saying, those are my people, like, I need to go help them, the fact that he can be like, we can't help everyone, is really, really bold-faced, considering the fact that the party
just did that for him.
Yeah,
that's true. But Percy's got a way of kind of sliding under the radar for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Where he does his thing, and it's like, but yeah, that's exactly it. Like, they risked everything for him, and now, is it that he doesn't see this as her people because, it's not her family, it's not her kin, it's not, she's Air Ashari, they're Fire Ashari, doesn't really matter.
I don't know that they know that enough about them.
I don't know that much about Although I do have to say, I did reread the 2 Vox Machina Origins comics, and I've got the 3rd one coming in.
Nice.
So I know all about Tiberius and everyone else as well. Yes. But yeah, so they're like, we have to do something. We can't just stop. And at that point, Vax kind of stops pushing back. Or at least we assume that they stop pushing back, because all of a sudden we're back into Pyra. And there's creatures made of lava flying everywhere. There's fire everywhere. There's lava everywhere. There's people dead everywhere. There's people being attacked in the streets. And Keyleth comes in with this massive drop kick out of the air and flattens one of these flying creatures.
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
No. The drop kick was pretty damn awesome though. And that, I really love that superhero slide back that they both did before they run back into each other. That was pretty awesome. I thought that attack they did was good. But she defeats the creature, saves a woman, says, go back home, and we see that Pyra is just being destroyed. It's being devastated.
Yeah, just from the idea that, if the volcano is active, then there's an issue going on. And the fact that we don't know how long it's been active, and then you walk in onto the scene, you gotta be like, is there anyone to save?
Yeah, they might be in trouble. They are decimated at this point.
It looks like hell, literal hell right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And these creatures, even from a distance, you can see these creatures just circling through and going through. And I was trying to get their name. I couldn't figure out their name.
Creatures' names?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
lava drakes.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say. It was like a lava drake. Like, there's nothing I could tie into it. But then there's a shocking moment. So again, we have this pacing of there's this battle within Vox Machina. She flies off. She's pissed off. She lands. She fights this creature. She flips around. Everything is chaotic and falling down around her. She turns around. She looks down off a cliff and sees her father standing there.
Yeah, Daddy Dearest is in Pyra. That just raised the stakes even more.
Yes. So we have Torin there. She runs down. She sees him. He's helping Serkanos up off the ground. And it's interesting. His first thing is there's hell breaking out around them. All of this stuff is chaos. And she's there. and his first immediate response is, "Oh, you must be here for your armamente." Not you're here to help. You're here like anything else is like, "Oh, you're here doing your learning, right?"
Yeah, you're doing your duty.
Yeah, you're going through, and
she looks very comfortable with that.
yeah, there's a lot of discomfort for Keyleth in this episode. Like it's been pretty wild. But then we learn that the rift has been torn open, and Serkanos tells us that it was a dragon who's laid waste to the people. And if the rift is not closed, the Fire Dominion will consume Pyra, and the rift will stay open forever. And right there, we are really given clear sense of stakes for this, what's happening. It's bad enough to have things going chaotic and people dying and lava everywhere and lava turning into drakes and having fun. Now we know that this could devastate the entire world. Like, you thought the dragons were bad. You got this portal to hell. This literally opened up. Creatures are pulling through, and if we don't stop it, it's going to stay this way.
So, just so that everyone knows, this isn't a portal to hell, because there literally is a portal to hell, and this one's not it. This is the fire plane, which is one of the elemental portal dimensions.
A hellscape.
A hellscape, yeah. This is a hellscape, and yeah, if the portal isn't shut, then the fire elemental realm will turn Tal'Dorei into the fire elemental realm. So this now became everyone's problem.
Yeah. And the stakes get jumped really high. And again, the tension is raised. And that's the thing. So for an episode that had a lot of really slow burn and kind of just waves, all of a sudden we have a bit of a peak and then a spike of, you really need to be paying attention now. Everything is going much worse. And so Torin, her father, says, "Come with me. You have to help me close the rift." And is like, "You're on your armamente. You must have had your mastery of fire must be amazing. You must be so far ahead of us that this is going to be super easy."
He
and the fire tamers need
so
our help.
Thick.
Yeah, it was so uncomfortable for her. Like, it really was this just like, this is everything that I was afraid of in the first season.
Oh yeah, I'm doing great. I'm super powerful, Dad. Let's go fix this.
Yeah, how you doing, by the way? But this literally is like her entire fear of, like, her anxiety of season 1 is like playing out in this one episode.
Yeah,
because she was afraid of seeing people that she knew. She was afraid of letting people down. She was afraid that her people weren't going to accept her, and that's all like boom here.
She was afraid of not being able to finish. She was afraid of failing it.
So much. And of course, this I think is where her mother was last seen, and this is kind of like her major obstacle of, I'm not ready for this one, and now all of a sudden I'm thrown into it and I have no choice because just the way life is going. Yes, Conquest, there's a ton of barbecue available. Just not a lot of blood, unfortunately. So they're going to jump in to help out, and that's where we realize, shocking actually, very stunning, that Kima and Allura are still alive.
Yay!
They're down there fighting, and Allura just like whisked them away at the last second and saved everybody that was in that tower collapse that came down at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, what a shock. It looks like Uriel's family minus him and Allura and Kima and maybe a few retainers, I think, were also in that group.
Yeah.
Like, it's she got a good amount of people out, and now the two of them are in Pyra fighting against, the lava drakes or whatever that are coming through the portal, trying to seal it up.
Exactly. And their first response is, "Keyleth, fantastic. Where's everybody else?"
Yeah. Where's Vox Machina?
Yeah. We love you, but, we need some help. And then again, we cut back to Vox Machina, and we have this thing where Pike is like, wow, like this place has been desolated. It's a massacre. And Grog, what do we fight fire with? Fire? No, me! And he runs in, and Percy just runs in after him. Like, I found Percy's like, yeah, just go.
Yeah, so again, I think this is another follow-up from the last couple episodes where Percy's doing things without thinking. Again.
Yeah.
Like, the second person in, that's not Percy. He stands in the back and shoots.
Exactly. There's something very different about this character this season. I mean, he went through some major character growth, and I think a big part of it, like you alerted to before. Hey, Lizard, thank you for the tip. $6.90. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Very cool.
Greatly appreciated. And I think this does come back to that scene with Percy and his sister before they take off on this thing where they're like, "You're good? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go be Mr. Reckless for a while." Like,
I'm gonna go be crazy.
he's trying to figure himself out from the looks of it. There's just been there's been a seismic shift in his personality and how he does things. Most definitely. And then I love the point where Vex is like, Trinket, and we see Trinket pop out, and it's this beautiful thing where Trinket's like, oh yeah, let's go. Like, I love that Trinket is actually an active character in this season.
Not only is he an active character, but he had like that really great moment in the temple. He now has like this little traveling locket that he stays in, so he can come in and out, be safe, and
yeah,
it's great. This is great.
It's such a beautiful thing for Trinket because everyone wants to see Trinket survive and wants to see Trinket safe and see Trinket kick ass and eat people.
Eat people.
No spoilers for you who haven't watched season 2 yet, but anyway, you can tip and say hi. You have no sound, so don't get spoilers. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it very much, Lizard. We will very much have a great time. Thank you. So
bye.
So that is, I think, just a beautiful way of carrying Trinket around, and it's this gorgeous thing of like being zipping in and out and doing this stuff. But then there is also Scanlan is floating up with the hand, and Vex is like, "What's the magic word? What's the password?" You got to agree to my thing, and I love it. I have been calling people an asshat for like 25 years. And the fact that she's like, "Oh, if you fall in lava, asshat," I'm like, this is so gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, so I like that he, raises up on the hand as well. This is also the first chance that Keyleth gets to see that the party did come after her. They didn't just abandon her in her, quest to save her people, and she gets that, visible look of relief on her face. And he does it like he always does, in style, singing and going up in his big purple hands. So
yeah, absolutely gorgeous. And then we have Kima and Allura basically tell again, if there's not enough pressure on Keyleth, they're like, you got this here, right? You can take over for the two of us, and we'll go get your friends. She's like, okay, sure.
Yeah. So I believe this is the point where she says, "I will certainly try."
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a huge, absolutely giant inside joke for at the table when the DM Matt Mercer, whenever someone wants to try something that's a little bit crazy, when they're like, "Oh, I want to, like jump off this monster's back and then do a somersault off the tree and drop kick this lizard in the eye," Matt Mercer's response is always, "Well, you certainly can try." So this was a huge homage moment of like how that is said at the table constantly, and I loved it.
That is fantastic. I was not aware of that, and I appreciate that scene even more now. But then as they take off, Keyleth's back is exposed, so Grog jumps in and starts killing everything behind her. We see lava and heads and body parts of these drakes flying everywhere. And then there's a really disturbing scene where the Craven Edge says, "I hunger, feed me." And he's like, "I'm trying, but none of them have blood inside them. They're all lava." And he's like, "Feed me now, find me blood." And then Grog's eyes turn red, and he looks over and he sees Pike.
Yeah. Did the sword just say it wants to eat Pike?
I think it did. I don't know if it was Pike in particular or just, I don't care who it is, just get me some food. But Pike was the closest morsel at hand.
It's not great morsel. That's perfect.
Yeah. 7 minutes into season 1, episode 1, I already identify with Keyleth and alcohol. Oh, you're watching now? Fantastic, Sailor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it.
You'll definitely love it. And then you can try the cocktails when you get into season 2. You can make the cocktails and drink them as you watch the episode. But yeah. We do have, but before anything can happen, he is, that'll end well. Before anything can really happen, all hell breaks loose, and he's kind of knocked off the ledge, and he can't really do anything or react in any way towards Pike with what's happening.
Yeah, things don't seem to be getting better. Like he's cutting down lava drakes, and they're dying. But then four more will come out of the portal. Between um, Keyleth and her dad trying to hold the portal, like that's not really working. Everything is just going from bad to worse to more worse to the worst.
Yeah. I jumped ahead though.
Oh,
On
you
that.
went.
That actually thing with the whole Pike didn't happen yet. 'Cause they're
Okay.
fighting, and the sword is saying, "Give me blood," and he's like, they all have lava, they don't have blood." And then Pike is like, "What'd you say there, buddy?" And he's like, "I like blueberry pie." She's like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then it
What?
goes off from there. And I love again because this scene is so chaotic. Because then we have again one of my favorite scenes of this episode, where Percy's running through going, "I am very flammable." He runs.
Yeah. The one-liners, they're just so good in this show.
Yeah, exactly. So they're all running up to Kiki, and they find out because Keela they realize that Allura and Kima are still alive, and as they're running, they're kind of explaining, saying that they Allura whisked everyone away at the last moment, and that they're the reason that Thordak is actually the one that tore open the rift, and they're the reason why, because they fought him years ago with another group, kind of like Vox Machina. They were grossly outnumbered, so they anchored his soul to an ancient artifact of a soul anchor, and used that to pull him into the fire realm and as an ancient tether, or an arcane tether, and keep him locked there. And now that has failed, and he's come back and is attacking.
Yes, they have. And I don't want to jump ahead at all, but we get a sneak peek of that soul anchor throughout the first episodes of this series.
Yes.
I don't know if you caught that.
Yes. I did actually pick up on that.
Cool.
Yeah. Because there was something that actually it was just odd enough to stand out. So you could tell that there was something, and you couldn't quite figure out what it was,
Mm-hmm. And
now
now you
that
know.
completely makes sense and ties into what it is. But then so they're tied in, and then Keyleth and her father are trying, and says, I can't do this. They're trying to stop the rift from doing what it's doing and expanding and letting people in, letting creatures in. And Keyleth says, I can't do this. And his father says, you're very strong. Like your mother actually may be stronger than your mother. And that gives her this moment of, okay. And she jumps in and uses ice to try to freeze everything up and lock everything up. And of course, that doesn't last very well.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well. And on top of it, the the fire trying to escape seems to actually burn hotter afterwards, and in the blowback from it, her father ends up on the ground, and
Yeah.
at least from vision, looking incapacitated.
Yeah, and the portal or the rift is actually opening. It's getting not just more fire coming through; it's actually widening and getting worse. And then that's where
Yeah.
Grog jumps in and sees Pike, the blade, kind of looking for Pike, and then he gets knocked aside by all the battle. That's everything that's happening. And they really try. They use almost every bit of magic that they've got available to them in this scene at this moment to try to shut this rift that's going down. Torn goes down. Keyleth yells for Pike to come help try to heal her father. And then Keyleth actually confesses to her father that, because she thinks he's dying, that, I haven't passed my trials. I've been too scared. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I don't know what I'm doing with this. And it's a beautiful moment where she's confessing everything to her father, and he's obviously not really reacting that much. But then they do it again. We get this quiet moment of listen. Her mother saying, "Little flower, listen. Listen to your power." And Keyleth goes into this trance where she's listening and she's moving and she starts walking towards the rift. And the entire time, the battle is raging around her. You can hear this distant, beautiful echo of the battle and people screaming and calling for help and shouting out orders and commands and stuff as she's in this dreamlight state kind of moving through the middle of everything.
Yeah, it's a beautiful effect, and I love that they keep using it. It's really neat. And in this aspect, instead of the anxiety that you usually get from this, you get serenity and quiet and calm and mom's comfort. And she explains to Keyleth, you just got to do what I taught you all those many years ago when you were just a little sprout. Control the fire.
Yep. And that's the thing. This is beautiful. Like the soundtrack, what the ambiance they use in this show is absolutely fantastic. And that's the nice thing about it, is that any audio apart from the dialogue of the characters is very subtle and subdued.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that's in your face except for obviously the songs that they're singing. So Keyleth walks up, puts her hand into the fire, and says, "I am Keyleth the Arashari, like my mother before me." She enters the portal, there's a boom, or she starts entering the portal, there's a boom, or the rift, and then she says, "I was made to pass through fire," and she enters the fire plane through the rift. And all of Vox Machina is freaking out, seeing her walking into this flame. They're trying to run down, they're trying to help her, and we see Vax really, just distraught again, almost at the same level that he was when he saw his sister go down.
Yeah, he's not thrilled about what she's deciding to do. No one's super happy about what she's trying to do, but Vax especially is like, "Don't do this to me. Like, I already had to go through one thing, and I don't think there's a Raven Queen to beg this time."
Yeah, exactly. And she goes through, and then she says, "It hurts," and then she says, "It only if I let it." And on a side note that I have on this written here is that there really is a theme to this season that I've picked up on, and that theme is finding your power. We see this with Grog, we see this with Keyleth, and those two characters especially, where they're really, where do you get your power from? Where do you get your strength? How do you increase your strength? They're actually, it's not just a matter of I'm going out and doing trials and I'm getting stronger and more powerful as I go along and everything is skippy and happy. This is actually psychological questioning, confronting, facing what is the source of your power? Where are you getting your power? How can you grow your power? How do you develop yourself? How do you move forward? There's so much more depth to all the challenges that some of these characters have to face in this season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's a lot of subtlety so far in some of the other characters, but I think there are a couple of the characters that are going through the same thing, and we just haven't reached their point of seeing it yet.
Yeah. But there really is a lot of, again, my complaint from season 1 was they kind of fixated on a couple of characters and built them out. They're doing that again. They're not, now I reverse it. I would now say they're focusing on a couple of characters, but they're doing really well with these little asides and these little moments, especially in this episode, to just, oh, by the way, this character is advancing this way. This character is advancing this way. This character is now, their perspective has changed because they're more mature.
Right. And I would say that in the first season, it was right around here in the mid-table of the season where we started to get into that, what are they doing with all these other characters? Why are they so fixated? And why are we seeing it done like this? And that's definitely not a complaint or a fear that I have in this season. They appear to be really doing a phenomenal job, really making everyone the star.
Yeah, they're just pulling, even if you're not the center focus, they're pulling along the storyline quite nicely. And of course, obviously, there's the Vax storyline of challenging his power, where he's getting it, understanding it, developing. There's just there's a lot happening in character development from this episode, or in this season. But then we actually see this really beautiful scene where Keyleth is getting burned up by the flames and it's burning through her body, and then she turns in to this giant fire form.
Sure does.
And starts kicking ass and taking numbers.
Yeah. She just starts shooting fire and being impervious to everything.
It's it's lighting up the fire realm.
Yeah, she's just laying waste to everything. And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's great to see her. This is obviously the most powerful that we've seen Keyleth become. This is the most godlike that we've seen Keyleth. And then she uses this white wave of energy or light or white hot fire, whatever it is, to kind of cauterize and close the rift while she's inside of it. and there's this massive boom that echoes out in the real world, and or in the normal realm, and all of these lava drakes are just dropping out of the sky, and she's kind of solved that what appears to be her sacrifice. She has solved what's happening, and she's closed the rift.
Yeah, and it's a very touching moment as you see each one of her compatriots just watch on, realize that, you know, she may have just saved not only Pyra, but the world, and sacrificed herself in this like literal blaze of glory doing it.
Yeah. And again, we see Vax completely distraught running in.
And grabs up
her staff, and it's just, again, the emotion that they did in this is so beautiful. And then the rift opens just enough to throw her back out. And I love that little touch of detail where I don't think anyone actually saw her in the fire form, because she was in the fire pillar, and then she turns into this form and does everything. And then when she comes out, just her antlers are on fire. Mm-hmm. And then they wisp out, and she collapses.
Yeah, and you get that like really touching moment of everyone in the party coming over and being like, "We thought you were gone. Like, we didn't expect you to come out of that. What did you do? How did you do that?"
Yeah, and then there's again that moment where they have a moment with Vax, where nothing is spoken. They just have this really intimate moment with each other, and he just hands her staff and says, "I think you'll be needing this."
Yeah, and at the beginning of this, you see that he is clutching it to himself before he hands it over. So yeah. It is a very touching and intimate moment, even though it's quick and finished with a joke.
Exactly. And then we see that she's actually gained the blessing of the Pyra, and she just has water and earth Aromantes to finish. And she's become a master of fire.
Hey, she's halfway there.
Yes, finally. And then he gives this warning, which is like just neon light of foreshadowing, if you're paying attention from a writing perspective, where he says, "Thoridak escaped with the aid of one of our own. Make sure you know and trust everybody around you."
Yeah. Yeah, don't trust anyone that you don't know, I guess.
And at this point, can you trust anyone you do know? Because that immediately threw me back to being like, yeah, you know what? Actually, the dragon in episode 1 came in human form and was like devastating Taldori's armies and like laying waste subtly to everything from the inside to set up all of this stuff to happen for the Chroma Conclave down the road. And so that's like, who else is a dragon? Who else is a creature in another form? Who else is someone hiding in your midst that you don't know? Or who else is just, you can't trust? Right? Like, I immediately started thinking of Kima and Allura, where I was like, what the hell? Like, they suddenly came back and are alive. Can we
one of you dragons
trust them? Like, what's happening with this? Like, not even like, are you a dragon, but how did you survive?
Yeah.
Right? If it's someone who was one of us who led this to happen, how did you two suddenly survive? Right?
That's a good question.
But then Keyleth actually says to Vax, you know, she could feel the connection between the planes. And he says, can you do it again? And she's like, there's only one way to find out. And then again, there's this moment where her father is like, I couldn't ask for better companions for Keyleth. And especially this one. Or keep an eye, like, all of you take care of each other, especially this one. And he points to Vax. And then we have this beautiful anime flush on both of them. Yeah. That was gorgeous. Again, there was a lot of different animation styles in this episode, I found.
As there usually is. Yeah.
But these ones I found really kind of stood out in a lot of them. And then we actually have Allura and Kima say that they're going to stay. They're not going to, Pike asked if they're going to help, and they say, no, we're going to stay and rebuild Pyra. And then we're going to go to Whitestone so that Kima can relax. And then they share a kiss.
They do.
Scandalous.
It's real scandalous and awesome to see. You don't get to see this in a loving relationship way often, if at all, especially in anime. So this was a really powerful statement, I thought.
And it was something that it wasn't like, we've been pulled together by trauma and everything else. Is like, this is a long-standing thing. Like, they've been a couple for a while now.
Yeah,
From the look of it, like if they're in an established relationship, they're together, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think that's really cool to have those two characters, classes of characters, types of characters be together in that.
absolutely.
Right? You wouldn't expect kind of like the hired muscle to be with someone that's considered to be like the, one of the what appears to be like one of the elite of society kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was great. Um, so I really like that part. But then as they're talking, she says that they need to go to Singorn because the whole city bugged out when the dragons showed up. And she says, elves, a skittish bunch of bastards. And
Yeah.
Vex is listening to this and kind of has a bit of a reaction.
Yeah, so in this episode, I think they discussed Signorn twice, and it's come up many, many times in the past that this was their home where they lived with their elvish father who they ran away from. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that would make them perk up as they're like, hey, we know we know that place. That place sucks.
Well, that was my thing where I was like, I'm kind of confused on this. Is she, because the response that she had to it was kind of like obviously interested, and there's kind of like a disgust or like an upset about it. And I was kind of debating, is she upset that they're talking about their home, the fact that they disappeared, and she's like, what's happening, what's going on? Like, even though, because she still has this tie-in, right? She still wants to impress her father. She still wants,
Yep.
so this has been brought forth. Now her home is being brought to the forefront and blatantly, and they're talking about it. So is that kind of mixed emotions for that? Or is it the fact that Kimo just said that elves are skittish bastards and was kind of going off on the elves? And that was that kind of her, again, being like, okay, well, I'm half elf and I'm sitting right here. So,
Yeah, I could see it being one or the other or both combination, but I never took it as upset that they were bad mouthing elves. I kind of assumed it was more the fact that they already knew, the two of them already knew that they were going to have to go to the Elvish city because Osissis, or was it Osissis? Nope. You know what? I'm not going to say anything. So
yeah, no, that's something that Oasis so far has just told them that when they get the first relic, then they're going to be led to the next.
Yes,
As
right.
they go, it's going to be kind of a pattern going through. But there's definitely this whole thing of that. They're on a quest, and that's the thing, is that before it was very much, season 1 was very much Whitestone. We're learning about the map. We're learning the world in this season. There's a lot of traversing that they're going through. But then she stops and she looks over at Scanlan. She's like, hey, thanks for giving me the password. Like, that really helped. And Scanlan's response of, what am I supposed to do? Allow you to die again?
Yeah, right.
You know?
I don't think Vax would have taken to that very well.
No.
I liked this a lot. Vex and Scanlan have not had the best relationship. In fact, I would probably say that their relationship is the worst out of the group. And this was the first step I saw to this, like, becoming better, becoming something like good for the group.
Yeah. There definitely was a bit of a growing connection. And
yeah,
it was nice to see that Vex actually went down to his level. Because again, we have that tie back. This is what I love about the writing in this. They always use so many beautiful tie backs and connections, and they're natural. But when she says, you know what, because I'm so mature now, I will accept your wager or your offer. Like, yes, you gave me the password in the middle of the battle, but because I'm so mature, I accept your wager. I owe you one. You name it, whenever, your time, your place. And she says Trinket's going to seal the deal for us, and then Trinket pees all over Scanlan's back.
Yeah, I thought for sure Trinket was gonna like lick him, like, dog, like a dog or something, but nope, he just soaks him to the bone.
Yeah, and it was absolutely perfect.
Bear pee.
Yes, bear pee. And then it goes, I was trying to look at my notes here, because all of a sudden we have a massive shift And we're suddenly in, we're no longer in Pyro, we're no longer with Vox Machina, we are now watching the Horde, Grog's people, going and tormenting and terrorizing people, this village of people, and taking all of their stuff and bringing it up and laying it, all the gold and riches and everything, to tribute to Umbrasyl. And
Sure are.
they're really kind of acquiescing and going along with Umbrasyl for this. And there's this beautiful exchange where Umbrasyl says, you continue to bring great goods and riches to us, and you continue to please me for now. And to which the member of the Horde, that's a representative, says, and we will continue to bring you things for now. And then that's where Umbrasyl comes back and says, for always, because nations will quake and tremble at the ruling reign of the Chroma Conclave. And then someone shows up.
Dun, dun.
And then someone shows up and says, hey, that might be a pretty short reign unless you want to listen to what I have to tell you, as she holds forth an orb that's wrapped in tide. And we're reintroduced officially, because we've been shown this a couple of times, we're officially reintroduced to Ripley.
Yeah, Ripley's back, and she's working with dragons.
Problem that, and she has black powder. We know that for a fact, because she bought it before Percy did. And that's the end of what we're looking at here. There's this just really wild moment where, and she doesn't quite look this way she was. I actually had to pause to look at the x-ray to make sure that it was who I thought it was for that. And it was actually Anna Ripley, our friend.
I just saw her, so it wasn't as bad for me.
But yeah, so it's great to see. There was just so much that happened in this episode that needed to get unpacked.
There was a ton.
Yeah. But the character arcs, the character development, like there are some major, like I said in the beginning of the episode, I found from a writing perspective, there was just a lot of setting up and arranging characters to get things ready for what was going to happen in this episode. And everything, like, really just, that's what I liked about this. It wasn't just something of like, okay, now you're being told you have to go do this, now you're being told you have to go do this, or now we have to try to figure this out. It was just, it flowed.
Yeah.
One event happened to the next, which led into the next, which led to Scanlan hovering, which led to the volcano being noticed, which led to going off. It was just a natural progression and flow to the entire episode. And it had some really great leaps in character development with Grog, with Keyleth moving forward, tightening up on the, or reaffirming the changes in characters with Vax and with Percy. We have comedic character inch forward with Vex. I'm not going to say that she had a character leap. I think she's still pretty much Vex. She's just got a little bit more ammo in her arsenal.
She's more mature.
Yeah, there does seem to be a new maturity about her. Maybe it came from dying. But there's just a lot of positioning and developing and moving through. Like there's, again, as always in this episode, there is so much that happened with the characters.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and on top of the storyline and the characters, the art styles have just been on point as well. The music, we had a couple of little musical ditties in this one. This episode literally had everything. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and they tied things up with. I found, again, they have a neat way of wrapping up and tying storylines without you even realizing it. The cold open was with her mother and her mother leaving. Then we find out that her mother has disappeared and she's behind a lot of her anxieties and things like that and going through her tests and trials. We actually see Keyleth go through one of her trials. And then we actually have that tie up with her mother. Believe in yourself, listen to your powers, move forward. And that kind of wraps that storyline. And then we have the wrap of the father storyline being like, okay, you kids go off, take care of yourselves. There's a lot more you have to do. And, extends or reinforces the storyline between Vax and Keyleth and all that stuff moving forward. But it kind of really quickly introduce in one episode Keyleth's backstory and resolve it all in one episode. And further her normal character arc moving forward.
Yeah, it was a success, I would say.
Yeah, it was a great episode for this. So with all of the stuff that we saw with this, what would you say would be a gripe that you have for this episode?
Ooh, my gripe. Ooh.
Or something that, actually, you know, I can't even say the word gripe. I think it would have to be,
I know.
what is the thing that you have, that if I'm putting you on the spot, so you have to find something that you need to nitpick on this episode. What is that thing that you want to nitpick?
Oh boy. So I don't have anything real. I'm just gonna throw it out there right now. This felt like a pretty clean and like well done episode. So my nitpick is ridiculous. My nitpick is I will restring your loot with your own pubic hair, because I bet you Scanlan already does string his loot with his pubic hair. There is no reason to believe he has not. I don't think that's a real threat.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree with that. Again, I don't really have a gripe or something to pull through. The only thing that I could say, if I absolutely had to pull something out, would be I would have liked to have seen a little bit more comprehension from Pike with what's going on with Grog. Keyleth is really picking up more on what's happening with Vax, and there's something different. And now this is the second or third time that Pike has been like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on? Like, talking to your sword? That's like weird stuff happening. You look kind of crazy when you're swinging this thing around." And I just find that it's still her level of interest, her level of understanding, her level of really like digging has kind of been the same going across. It would have been nice to see just a little bit more of being like, well, but I guess they're actually a little bit, no, not in this one there wasn't, but yeah, but that just a little bit more of like, okay, what, there's something really weird going on here, a little bit more acknowledgement of that. But again, I think that's like, I really have to dig and fight to pull something out for that. And
yeah,
you know, every time that she has an understanding, it's in the heat of the moment of a battle, and she doesn't really have a moment. There was when they were leaving the sunken tomb that she had a moment where she was like, "Hey, can we talk about this?" And then they get pulled away to leave. But
yeah, I agree. I think that it's been very status quo with her acknowledgement of Grog's weirdness. And I mean, that being said, he's not doing anything super sketchy right now. Like, he is talking to the sword, but I mean, Grog's kind of a weird guy. Like, no one looks twice when he's, exerting dominance over his dookie. So why would they be super concerned with him talking to a sword, except for the fact that everyone that's seen it has mentioned it's a dark sword?
Yeah, there's something really evil behind it. Like, I just think that her, especially being what she is with the Everlight, I think her attention should be a little bit more peaked than it is with this.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
And again, they've actually been doing really smart layout of this stuff where Pike is the only one that's actually witnessed a couple of things.
Yep.
See, now Scanlan has noticed something. I think there's another episode where someone else noticed that there's something a little bit weird happening. Obviously, we have him actually being told in the very beginning that, like, that's, what that sword does? Like, that's kind of it kills dragons. So there's been little hints here and there and stuff like that, but Pike is the only one that has had multiple insights into something being off. And she's also the one that's closest with Grog, which I was actually kind of interesting when I rereading the comic books. I was actually kind of interested to see that it was actually Grog and Scanlan that were out together, adventuring together first.
Yep.
And Pike was a totally different kind of thing. And Pike had black hair. In the comic books, Pike had black hair.
Huh. I don't remember that, but okay.
Her grandfather, her papa, whatever his name was, 100% almost identical from the comic book to the cartoon, to the show. But yeah, Pike actually had black hair in the comics, and she's introduced in Volume 2, and she had black hair.
Cool.
So it was neat. I would show you, but my wife actually just returned that comic book tonight. Damn it! I knew I should help.
That's fine.
But yeah, so again, really no real gripes to pull through with that, unless give the damn lava dragons a name.
Yeah, what were they? Oh, that's what my choice should have been. Yeah. So who's your MVP? Who's your real MVP, and who's your your heart MVP?
Yeah, heart MVP, I would have to say Actually, I think they might actually be the same person this time.
Okay.
I think the MVP of the episode, and I might, as we're talking, I might change my heart MVP.
Sure.
But the one that really stood out above all and beyond all else for me was like I loved Vex for the humor that she added into it, and just she was just exceptional in this episode. I found Vex was a lot of fun in this episode. But the MVP, I think, I would have to give to Keyleth. Keyleth stood up against the rest of the group. She fought for what she believed in. She didn't even fight in some instances. Mm-hmm. Vax pissed her off. She just turned into a hawk and pissed off. And it was like, gone. Like, fine. I asked you for help. You said, no, I'm out and I'm going to do it. And she faced her fears. She confessed herself to her father. She turned into the fire being. She sealed the rift. She saved the world. I think that's like, it was just so beautiful to get that background for Keyleth, to see the growth, to see the character arc, to see the storylines open and close, and to see her really come to herself in a way that is a very godlike situation. That's not a permanent godlike status, just an instantaneous thing that was through insanely hard work and struggles to get to that point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that is the true MVP of this episode. I think it would be very hard to argue anyone else as really the most valuable person in this episode. And I would add that the thing that stuck out for me with Keyleth is the fact that, yes, she did all those things. Yes, she pissed off when Vax, upset her and just did that thing. But she also didn't crumple. She didn't go in on herself when she was arguing with the group when they said, "Nah, we're not going to do that. We can't help everybody." She said that I'm doing it myself and just went. Yeah. She didn't. I think in season 1 she would have moved to the back of the group and like cried first, and then maybe snuck out.
Yeah, she really came into her own. And hey, yeah. Moon, nice to see you. I am feeling better, thank you. But yeah, it really was nice to see her come to her own, and but they really did have this moment. And again, I found there was really intelligent writing in this episode when because we talk about false thoughts, false beliefs. A character arc is not a beautiful arc going up. You're going to slide back and go back into your old belief systems and things like that are flawed. And when her father says, like, you have to come help me, you have to do this, and she actually goes back into season 1 panic of like, I can't do it. I know, like, but she's confronted her father. She's been confronted by her father. She's confronted by everything that she feared. It's laid out in front of her, and she has this thing like, she's like, I can't do it. No, and she has this very solid early season 1 panic meltdown for a couple of seconds till her father is like, listen, you're just as strong, if not stronger than your mother. You've got this. And then she stands up and moves forward. But so she does have this retreat back into the flawed thoughts, and back into her really old way before she breaks through. And it's not just an automatic leap through. It's, I'm going to push, like, I just have to get through the next 30 seconds. I just have to get through the next 30 seconds. I just have to get through the next 30 seconds. Oh, shit. Okay, I just have to sacrifice everything because otherwise this isn't going to work.
So we spoke at length, especially near the end of season 1 and early in season 2, about how we didn't want to see Keyleth slip into that early season 1 Keyleth where she doubts everything. And I think it's important to recognize that this moment where she does slip into that like real like beginning of the journey Keyleth for those seconds, like that was appropriate. That was an appropriate time for her to have that struggle. Yeah, she had everything that she feared. That was the whole like generation of that trauma in season 1 was right there in front of her in a situation where she didn't feel like she'd be able to help or save the people around her. So I think it's important to know that when we talked about we didn't want to see Keyleth slip into that again, this was an appropriate time for it.
Yeah, this was the perfect way of doing it. If you're going, like, this is textbook. If you're writing a story and you want to show a character falling back into flawed beliefs at a point of crisis, at whatever, this is how you do that. Right? Everything, and that's the thing, it was a cavalcade of everything. Not to mention the fact that she doesn't have answers for her mother. Her mother's gone. She is where her mother disappeared. The fate of the world, even more so, like, they're already battling dragons, and now it's like, okay, well, if we don't stop this, then the Fire Realm is going to come in. Everything is going to be screwed. Like, it's just the stakes are at the absolute highest that they've ever been for her. and it would be ridiculous for her not to crumble beneath that weight, at least momentarily.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think it was
So
textbook picture perfect writing for this.
yeah, absolutely. So do you have a different Heart MVP, or are you sticking with Keyleth?
I really like Keyleth. I might, you know what? Just for the things that made my heart kind of sing and go pitter patter and be happy. I think I've already used this character as an MVP, but I have to go back to them. And for being badass, for jumping into action when needed, for just being awesome when they jump into action, and for pissing on Scanlan, I'm going to have to go with Trinket.
So I had a feeling that you were going to go with Trinket. And I have a feeling it's not going to be the last time you go with Trinket.
I like bears, and I like Trinket. Trinket's an awesome character. Hey, Green Giant, how are
you? No shade, no shade.
Yeah, how about yourself? Who's your heart MVP?
So I agreed with Keyleth being the actual MVP of the episode. I think that she had a tremendous arc and everything that we've already discussed. My heart MVP, and it was a hard choice because there was a lot that I liked in this episode, but I think my heart MVP is going to go to Vex because she's so mature. She just and the ultimate reason is because of the way that her and Scanlan kind of made up near the end of this episode. And she said, look, I agree to your terms. I think that was huge for her. Like she just doesn't do that kind of stuff. And like, it was a huge olive branch. I think that she was hilariously funny throughout this thing. She had a number of great one-liners. That's Vex.
Yeah, it was. And I gotta say, I think this was actually that scene where she does say, you know, I'm mature, so I accept your bargain or your rules. Mm-hmm. You know, we get that moment where she whips in on the broom, and then Scanlan has this real like look of terror on his face, and then just the entire, it's like a 30-second scene or a 20-second scene, and just the way she's lounging on the broom, and she's absolutely beautiful. The drawing is like kind of static, and with that, and she just has this like look on her face. It was just so beautifully executed. And I think the way they illustrated her, the way they, like, had she just walked up to him and said the same thing, it wouldn't have been the same. The fact that she was lounging on this thing and again, kind of like we talked about before, where you know Scanlan's up to something, you don't realize until too late that it's like, oh, she's up to something too in this scene. Yeah. So I think they did a great job with that.
Agreed.
But yeah, so I have to say, this was, all in all, it was a lot of welcome back, Moon Moon. It was a lot that happened in this episode. It was pretty fantastic, very exciting. I really am looking forward to the next. So the next couple episodes are going to be challenging for designing the cocktail.
Really?
Yeah, there's one. So not the next not episode 6, episode 7 is one I'm really excited for, and there's so many things I want to do for the cocktail, but I can't because of legal reasons, and also just for
what?
So in episode 7, I would love to design a cocktail that would emulate episode 7.
Okay.
But for legal reasons, I obviously can't make a cocktail with psychedelics in them.
All right.
However, the other problem too is when you've got psychedelics, they are actually counteracted by alcohol. So alcohol actually diminish any returns that you have on psychedelics that you might take. So, but I've got some ideas for a pretty trippy cocktail, and it may or may not change colors.
All right, looking forward to 7.
Exactly, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I got to rewatch episode 6, and I've got some ideas for that, but there's just a lot happening. So I gotta say, it's fantastic being back. Do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
I don't. I would say that it's been a very, very hard season as far as rating episodes and picking a favorite. I am going to hold fast and say that 3 is still my favorite episode, but this one is a hard second. a hard second, and easily probably you could switch the two.
Yeah, I'd agree. And you really need to watch the show. I agree, Green Giant and Conquest just depend with the mixed drugs for the amount of colors you experience. Exactly. But yeah, I agree. I found this episode to be visually beautiful. The writing was fantastic. The character arcs, story arcs, all that stuff was fantastic. Um, the only thing I would say about this episode is possibly because I'm coming back from COVID and I am a bit cloudy headed and a little bit slower moving. This is my first day back at work and I've only been negative for a couple of days. Was it? There was just it was a lot. It was like there's some episodes you pause and you take notes. Like it takes me usually for a 25-minute episode, it takes me about 45 minutes to an hour to take notes, and it took me about an hour and 15 minutes. Like there was just a lot of pausing, a lot of note taking. Like there was just a lot crammed into this, and that's not that it's a negative. It was just because I'm in a weakened state. It was just seemed a lot more of an arduous task to actually break down everything because they just crammed so much in this episode, and that's something that
Sure.
I still can't wrap my head around is they give us an hour and a half worth of content in 25 minutes every single week.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I watch an episode and I'm like, for sure this has to be the longest episode that they put out. And then I look and it's like 25 minutes and 12 seconds. And I'm like, how is this not 40 minutes long?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's just even because we've obviously seen through the season, and I have to say in the final 3 episodes, I was like, there's so much that they need to wrap up. There's so much that they need to do, and for this to make sense. And then at the end, I was like, well, shit.
How did they do that?
they did it. Okay, and I can't wait to see what's coming next. So, but we're gonna get to that. Sailor, how many insults does Scanlan throw on a regular basis? Goat groper, I am stealing that. Scanlan basically is a walking insult machine that you want to just take everything he says, wrap it in a bow, and throw it at someone's head.
Yeah, he's the comic relief, quote unquote.
And that's all he focuses on is relieving himself. But Scanlan is a pretty awesome character, and I gotta say, like this, all of the characters they developed have absolutely been fantastic. For this, I just remain in awe of all the stuff that they do. And if you don't already, I recommend following Critical Role on TikTok because they actually have a ton of behind the scenes stuff. The other day,
good.
They did how each one of them roll their dice. They've got like little behind the scene things they do beforehand. Sam like showing off his different costumes and things like that. There's just it's just gold content that comes out of their TikTok as well. Yeah. So yes, Green Giant, you have to go watch the show. It is brilliant. It's irreverent. It's fantastic. It's again, because of the show, I actually went back and I watched Heavy Metal Fact 2 or Fact Squared again, and that's something that I found that this is like that level of adult kind of cartoon, but so much better. The writing, the storyline, the characterizations, all that stuff, like it just really made Heavy Metal kind of look like a flat one-sided story. So, and I mean, it kind of was, but when it came out at its time, it was pretty huge. If any of you out there actually are old enough to know what Heavy Metal is. That was in the 70s to the 80s Heavy Metal started.
I thought it was really early 80s, but
yeah, I think so.
Could have been
I know 70s. I started reading it in late 80s, early 90s. Or I guess it would be early 90s I started reading it, but that's that. Anyways, so we're gonna be back on Monday with episode 6, and
we're gonna be back on Tuesday.
A lot of work to do. No, we're gonna be back on Monday with another episode, more cocktails, you wongsters, and having just a lot of fun breaking this stuff down and talking about it. So, thank you again very much for joining me tonight, Billy. I greatly appreciate the conversation as always. It's been a fantastic episode. We're going to keep talking a little bit here before we wrap up for the night. So have a fantastic night, Billy. Thank you very much for coming through. Thank you for all of your support and all of this and your insights. Always appreciated.
Yeah, always happy to be around.
Fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
All right.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye.